So we are on. Um, so how are we doing today, Phil?
Doing good, doing good. I'm happy to be here on the podcast. Do you have a name for the podcast yet?
Yeah, the Red Belt Podcast.
Okay, well, I hope someday to be close to a red belt. So we'll see if I can get there a little closer to my red belt in business today.
Yeah. So that's more what I'm going for with the Red Belt Podcast name. I've only had one person give me a hard time about the name so far. It was at the Martial Arts Super Show. Some random old guy like in a wheelchair and stuff. Like my dad was wearing a shirt that said Red Belt on it, and he's a black belt in judo and stuff like that. And like because the name of the software is Red Belt, he laid into us that none of us were red belts.
Right.
Um, but that's the only guy so far. Red Belt dropped by the booth. Carlos Machado dropped by the booth. He didn't have a problem with it. So, but yeah, that's we're talking about Red Belt or mastery in business. So, I've known Phil for a really long time. I guess over a decade now.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about your BJJ background, Phil.
I started training with Eddie Bravo in 2007. And I have been with 10th Planet ever since. And now I'm the owner, head instructor at 10th Planet Portland. And I'm proud to be still, teaching 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu every day. That's what I do.
Awesome. So how about business background? Because you're known a little bit in 10th Planet. You help with some of the business things. Did you have a business background before this, or you just figured it out after?
Yeah, I actually did have a business background, and it's funny because Casey Halstead, who's another future guest of the Red Belt podcast, I'm sure, he once told me it's easier to teach a business guy jiu-jitsu than to teach business to a jiu-jitsu guy. And I was like, man, that's really smart. Because there's people who just kind of understand business and people who it comes really a lot harder to them. I started working when I was 16 years old in the music industry, and I worked in the music business for many years. And then after the music business, I transitioned to working in the legal business, and I worked in lots of law firms. And between the music industry and the legal industry, I learned a lot from a lot of mentors, some good, some bad. And in 2013, 2014, I started my own consulting company doing cannabis consulting in the mostly Oregon market, which had recently legalized. So I had my own basically business consulting company, and I ran that for several years before transitioning to doing only jiu-jitsu. So I've kind of been a serial entrepreneur my whole life. And so I wouldn't say that I don't have a business degree. I don't have an advanced MBA or anything like that, but I have been involved in the management, operation, and running of businesses for a very long time.
Yeah, similar to me. I don't have a business degree. I have an engineering degree, but I've been doing something involving business since first grade. So the buying and selling and stuff like that. Have you found that that this business is really different than other businesses, like a staggering difference?
Yeah. Jiu-jitsu is a really difficult business for a lot of people, for most people to master. It's 100% a people business. It's all about people. And that's really hard because people are really complicated, and you have to care about people in order to be good at the job. If you ultimately are in it for a paycheck, if you're ultimately not really someone that cares about the progress of your students and the success of your students, people are going to sniff that out, and they're going to be uninterested in you. So it's the genuine care and love of the sport that people get attached to. And when you see successful jiu-jitsu businesses, usually, almost always, there's someone that really cares at the top or at the helm, who's kind of shepherding everyone else.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. Though that might be the case in a lot of businesses. Uh, how about like when you talk about sales, because you've done sales in different things, does the sales feel way different in this business to you?
Um, if you think about it, all sales is coming down to giving somebody something that they want, right? Someone has something that they want, and you have to be the guy to give it to them. So, a lot of times in jiu-jitsu, when it comes to sales, what I've noticed is that a lot of people are lonely. They don't have a place in their life that feels like a good place to go to. For a lot of people, that might be the bar. And I've heard this described before, and I've latched onto this theory that they call the third space. And so you have your workspace, you have your home space, but then you need a third space that you go to where you kind of, it's not one of the other two places. And that's what I think people went crazy with in the pandemic, was everyone was living at home, working from home, couldn't leave their house. So all three of the spaces got condensed down into one space. And the gym is going to be that healthy third space for a lot of people. Hey, you don't want to go to the bar after work? Why don't you come down here and we'll knock out your goals? Some people want to be a champion, world champion. Some people want to lose weight. Some people want to gain confidence. All of those things are possible through martial arts. So that's ultimately what you're selling. And the best thing about selling martial arts, the thing that I love the most about selling martial arts, is it's not snake oil. I know it's good for you because I went through it. I went through the program, 16 years ago. I started in martial arts with no background, no wrestling in high school, nothing like that. No taekwondo when I was a kid. I did gymnastics. That was it. And when I started in martial arts, I had a full transformation of my person, of my thinking. So I went through all of that. So when I'm selling a membership to somebody, it's a product I actually believe in, and that changes it for me.
Yeah, that's the same thing for me. And yeah, I definitely think that helps with the sales, makes it easier to sell from the salesperson's perspective. I do know a lot of people still have trouble selling it, though they believe in it. Though, like you and I know at least me, I did not have much money at all when I started training. And because I invested so much in travel and whatever, I ended up paying way more than an average student pays from the very beginning.
Right.
And while I didn't have a cell phone until 2013 or no 14, 2014. We met way before then. There was no phone. I was there on my own. And I'm not so old that nobody had cell phones. Like other people had smartphones, and I had like Goodwill. So yeah, but I just prioritized it. But definitely in the beginning, it was hard for me to be like, because people came in and like, oh, I can't afford it. And price was even so low back then. Like I was super underpriced. And despite I went through all that, like, so thoughts on getting through that sort of thing, like with the customers that come in with oh, that's so much, and the salesperson is like, because we're like not salespeople, we're jiu-jitsu guys that want to help you out.
Right. It's tough. I've one of the solutions, honestly, for me, because I am the guy that wants to help you out. You know what I mean? And when you're the owner of the company, people can put pressure on you in a way where they're like, no, I need you to help me out here, or cut me a deal, or can't you do something for me? Everybody wants to feel special. So can't you do something for me? And so at a certain point, I've hired other staff members to handle sales, because it creates a little bit more separation between me as the head of the school and the people who are selling you the membership, where there's less pressure to think that they're going to sway the price. But we have offered financial aid to people, but it's just tough. But the thing is that as soon as you realize your value and you start to stick with it, people will start to pay it. So that's a really big thing for people to understand. People who feel chronically undervalued, they probably have never asserted their value or fought for it. And as soon as you start saying like, no, I'm not going to sell my services for less than $149 a month, then people will start paying $149 a month. But if you'll let people pay $89 a month, they'll pay $89 a month.
Yeah. The quote that got me over it personally was for every time you make a deal, like if you make a deal with somebody that has hard luck and whatever, and we're going to say that's telling the truth because, they probably are having hard luck and stuff like that. There's another person on your mats that is the most loyal students that you have. They didn't ask for a deal, and their situation was as bad or worse than the other guy. And
but they made it work.
Advantage of that person. You're disrespecting that person that's more loyal, and that got me over it because I couldn't get over it with just like, oh, I'm worth this, because I wanted to help them out, but like, no, I can't do that because I got other people, because I know I do. I had college students, people from the very beginning that'll pay full price that I know they don't have a lot, right? And these other people drive in and like, you guys there's other people in the same spot. So at some point, if you do differentiate it for special programs, I think that's an exception. And then you have an application process, right? Especially for kids. So you put barriers in place. If you do want to do that, like, hey, fill out this thing. And it's fair if everybody knows about it and everybody can fill out said thing, if you want to go that route about it. But otherwise, yeah, that's what got me past it is that like I have to realize that other people are paying it, right? And I have to do that. And also, when we stick to the process, it goes back to what you were saying. When we stick to the process and we have an exact process that we have faith in, people ask about it way less now than they used to, for sure. So what you talked about separating yourself, and I also have salespeople. Like I don't do many of the immediate sales anymore. What do you think about the necessity, like how necessary it is for you to have done it first though?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in when you run a company and when you do a business, you need to understand every job in the company to the point where you could do that job before you can outsource that job. So before I hired a marketing company, I understood how marketing works and how advertising works and how leads and how funnels work and what return on ad spend is. And then once I understood all of those things, then I hired a marketing company who I outsourced those things to. So in order to do sales, I have to understand sales. In order to hire a jiu-jitsu instructor, I have to understand jiu-jitsu. So I have to be able to do it first myself before I can outsource it. Because if I can't do that, then the person can come to me and tell me anything is an issue, and I can't check the truth or the validity of that statement because I can't do the job myself. So I'm a big believer in, even if you have things like it could be cleaning the toilets, anything that you plan to absolutely outsource as soon as possible, it's probably something you've done or should be something that you've done in your company,
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Especially if you're hiring, outsourcing completely, you may be a little safer, but I still agree with you. But if you're hiring somebody internally, the people that can never, and that was me, I had trouble with sales, like until I myself got everything down, I could never hire or train a good salesperson. That's like a gym with a white belt isn't going to produce a black belt.
Of course.
Because where's it going to come from? So maybe you can hire a black belt, but that said, all the tap out gyms, you see all these problems with the fake black belts and whatever, because once again, the guy hiring them didn't know. You and I wouldn't have run into that problem because we would have been able to tell in an instant if that guy was full of it or not. But if you don't know jiu-jitsu, like, well, he seems like he knows. I don't know, I guess.
He put black belt on his resume.
Yeah, surely that, you must have it, right? Who would lie on their resume?
Right. Yeah, I think that that's just a basic tenet of running a company. And I think that a lot of people make a mistake by not getting into those details or not looking into that stuff. But the problem with that for me is that that has led me to like starting a million companies, because I get into something and I'm like, oh, these people are massively overcharging us for this thing. We'll just start doing that in-house now. And so now I have, a media department and a merchandise department and an advertising and sales. And it's like just running a jiu-jitsu gym is a lot more complicated than it looks.
Yeah. Sometimes it does make sense to, even if you're quote overcharged, to not be the doer of all things.
Totally.
Yeah. So in terms of that, like I'd say most gyms are a one-man show in jiu-jitsu, right? So how do you feel about that? How important is it if somebody is coming to you and telling you that they're like that's their vision? What would you tell them about that? You think that's fine? Or do you think it's important to move past that?
In being a one-man show?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm nothing without my team. I mean, my team is huge, and I've put a lot of time and energy into building my team, both in terms of coaches and in terms of admins and other people, and so I'm a big believer in investing in people. We spoke about this a little bit earlier, but when I was 15, 16, 17 years old, people took chances on me. They hired me, gave me jobs, mentored me, brought me up in the ways of good business practices and all this kind of stuff. And I want to do that for my people now. That's one of my main goals, is to not just be successful myself, but to help other people escape the rat race of the life and get into the jiu-jitsu world. So I'm a big believer in building and training teams. I don't think you should be a one-man show, but I also sometimes I envy the simplicity of a lean organization, and 10th Planet Portland is a very, very big organization in terms of staff. We have like 14 or 15 people on payroll on staff, which to me is a lot. And when we open new gyms with new partnerships, we try to keep them very, very lean, much more single operators, because it creates profit faster, right? Obviously, if your goal is to pay the bills and to pay for your family's bills and create profit as soon as possible, then having a lean operation is good. But there's that old saying, like, if you want to go far, go together. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, if you want to ever take a vacation, if you want to ever open a second location, if you want to ever stop doing the sales yourself, stop doing the merchandise yourself, stop doing the shipping yourself, if you want to stop doing the bill collection yourself, you're going to need a team, and you're going to need to know how to train those people and build them up so that they can do the job and feel, passionate about it.
How many of those team members were students of yours? Did you get anybody from like Indeed, Facebook, or whatever, or they all came up through you?
100% of them are students.
Okay.
I don't know that I've toyed with the idea of hiring from the outside world, but I've never done it. I've only ever hired from within. And I've just simply said in the past, hey, there's an opportunity to do this for the gym or do that for the gym. Is anybody interested? And then I kind of judge the personality of the individuals. Like, most people who are on my teams, like, working in the gym is their second job, but they're passionate about it and they care, and they're good team members, and they bring a lot of skills to the table. But over time, their role grows because they show that they're good workers and that they produce a good work product. And then I give them more to do and more to do, more responsibility over time, more payment over time. And then, hopefully, so I have a few people soon who I'm hoping they'll be able to do what I did, quit their day job and do jiu-jitsu full time.
So none of your people are full time right now.
No, no one is full-time jiu-jitsu except for me in the gym.
By full time, I mean like anything at the gym, where there is their full-time job. So that's interesting to me that so you would rather go with 14 people, which payroll is going to be higher than like a handful at full-time, I assume. You would rather go with spread out like that than a handful and give them full-time. Why is that?
I'm actually moving back towards the handful at full time. That's the goal, is to move back to that place. But we just have a lot of qualified individuals right now that are essentially in a training program. So I think of it like a pipeline of skill development. So coaches come in, they start as assistant coaches, and they work their way up to being fundamentals coaches and to being all levels coaches and to being or kids coaches. And at some point they end up doing rotations on the desk. And when they're doing a desk rotation, then they're the ones doing all the sales, making all the calls, all that kind of stuff. And once they've done all of that, usually they'll become advanced coaches. And then once they've done that and they've gotten a black belt, now they've done every job in the gym. So they've taught kids, they've taught fundamentals, they've taught advanced class, they've worked the desk, they've sold memberships. So they're basically someone that's ready now to open a new location, open their own gym. So they're going to now become their own boss. Instead of me being their boss, now maybe I'm going to invest in their gym, be their partner. They're going to become their own boss. And now they know actually how to do what they're doing. I have friends that are black belts that did nothing but train jiu-jitsu their whole lives. And they got their black belt and a guy says, hey, you want to work for the gym? You want to teach class? You want to run the gym? And he's like, well, yeah, I want the opportunity to run the gym, but I don't have a business background. I've just been training for the last 10 years. You know what I mean? So I like to get people started earlier in their careers with the experience of the business of jiu-jitsu, while they're training up, so that by the time they get to black belt, they're actually ready to make their own money and start their own gym.
That I agree. And those sort of opportunities are pretty rare still in jiu-jitsu. Like, I'm not saying working for somewhere, but like development like that, most people have the experience that you're talking about, that they have one thing or the other they could teach maybe, but they don't know anything else about it. And a lot of the black belts that originally were sent here from Brazil or like that, they can teach, but that's it. Some of them didn't even speak English in the beginning. Like, they can just teach jiu-jitsu, and things kind of fall where they may after that. So you're talking about, though, the end goal is they own a place. And that's something I've been thinking about a lot, that how the world is, that most people aren't business owners because, they don't want to be. So have you ever considered the idea that, okay, so what is the advantage of becoming a business owner? Like, is it the money? If not, if it's the money, can we just produce jobs that pay high enough, that they make enough from us, that there's no advantage that way? Or do we not want to do that?
First of all, there's some crazy statistic, like 3% of the people produce 90% of the jobs or something like that. Like the business owners are like 3% and the workers are like 90%. You know what I mean? Like, so obviously the people who are driven to be business owners, it takes a certain type of personality. And I think part of that personality is, just like I did, at a certain point, you just get tired of working for somebody else. You're tired of working for someone else. And like another thing that I've heard people say is like, if you don't build your own dreams, then someone will hire you to build theirs. And it's like, if the money is sufficiently high, there's quite a few guys that I've given black belts to that aren't gym owners. Like, there's guys that are just going to work their jobs and be a black belt. Maybe they're an attorney, maybe they're, a designer. It's like, maybe they already have a career that they love. Jiu-jitsu is their hobby and they have reached the level of black belt. So not everybody wants to turn their hobby into their profession. But if you are someone that wants to do that, then I invest extra into those people. But those people have to volunteer up. They have to say, this is what I want. You know what I mean? Just like if someone comes to you and says, coach, I want to be world champion. You say, oh, you want to be world champion? Are you sure? Okay, go run 5 miles every morning. Well, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, then I guess you don't want to, if you don't want to do the things it takes to be the champion, then you must not really want to be a champion. So the same thing goes for being a business owner. If you want to be a real business owner, you may not make a lot of money the first year you're in business. Your business may not make a lot of money. What does that mean? That means working for free, but you're working for yourself.
But should you have to be a business owner to do this for a living?
Oh, that's a great question. No, you shouldn't have to. I don't think you should have to. But I also, and this is maybe something different about me, but last year I gave 44% of the company of the profit of the company back to the employees. So I'm a big believer in profit sharing. So even if employees aren't owners of the company strictly, they can still share in the profits and be motivated by the benefit of the company. So that the better the company does, the more money they make directly. And that's an incentive that doesn't require ownership.
Right. So I'm kind of an opinion that right now, many people that are not the business owner person, right? They're owning a gym. And the reason they're doing so is because, and then they don't really do everything that's required, and they don't have good mentorship, and then they struggle their whole life. The reason they're doing so is there isn't a lot of good jobs in jiu-jitsu, that they are a job person. They're not business owner person, but they are a jiu-jitsu person. And they don't want their job. They want to do jiu-jitsu, and they're opening a gym because it's the only way out. And I do know that there are gyms, there aren't a lot of them, there are gyms that pay people more than almost any gym owner makes.
Totally.
I know several of them. So I have several employees right now that I pay full-time. One of which, the one that kind of manages my gym, he got a large pay bump. That he didn't quit for that his other job for that reason, right? But he got a significant pay bump, and has gotten a raise since from his previous career that he went to college for. And now he gets to do. It's like he has no interest in becoming a gym owner, because if he ever, it would be way more stress, responsibility, uncertainty, and for a long time he'd make less money. And with continuing raises and such, he'd basically never catch up, most likely. So I feel like it's my responsibility to set that up. Now, that said, if you want to go forth, we can partner and help you with that. And there's probably at least one person that works for you right now that we will be doing that, right? That he'll be owning his own place or partner or something like that.
Right.
I've got another that won't probably, that doesn't like that idea. And I feel like both of those people, I feel a responsibility to provide opportunities in jiu-jitsu for them. So do you feel that way, like about making jobs for these people? Like, I know they have the pay people. Oh, somebody else will pay you to make yours. That's a toxic little quote from an entrepreneur group. But there's also, I've heard another quote that it's make your dreams so big that the people around you will fit inside them. Right. So, which way are you leaning? You think both of those can be true? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I like going back to personalities, like I'm a big believer in, I'm not trying to control or manipulate people. There's people who want to work with me or for me in a partnership with me because they like what I bring to the table. I like what they bring to the table. Then there's other people who want to go their own way and they want to run the business their way and they want to see how that goes. That's fine. I don't hold a grudge against anybody for wanting to do their own thing. You know what I mean? I respect that because that's what I did. But the truth is that not everybody wants that. So I agree with you. We should be trying to make a living wage in jiu-jitsu. But I think that one of the things that people don't understand is that there's only so much you can pay somebody to just teach classes. And there's only so many classes you can teach a week that is going to, in order for the quality of the classes to be good, we could get into that. But I think that once you start teaching more than 3 classes a day, your quality of your classes is going to go down. So, if you teach 3 classes a day, 6 days a week, that's a lot of teaching. That's a lot of talking. That's a lot of lesson plans and students to have to memorize and have to keep up with, and so if you're teaching more than that, you're probably tired by the end of the day. You probably don't have a lot of energy to respond to emails and to do all these other things that are really important to keep the business running. But if you teach just quick math, let's just say quick math. If you're teaching 3 classes a day, 6 days a week, 18 classes a week, that's 77 classes a month. If you get paid $50 a class, that's only $3,800 a month. So when you multiply that out, that's $46,000 a year, which isn't nothing. But if you want to make $90,000 a year in jiu-jitsu, you're going to have to do something more than teaching. You're going to have to sell some memberships. You're going to have to sell some seminars. You're going to have to sell some t-shirts. You're going to have to do something that goes above and beyond just teaching a class. And that is the uglier side of the business, because it's not so fun. Teaching is the fun part.
Right. Well, most gym owners do not make $96,000 a year, by the way.
But they'd like to.
They'd like to, right? So, and to be, if all you do is teaching, you probably honestly make nothing. You probably work another job and the jiu-jitsu gym pays its rent if all you do is teach. So yeah, it's a lot of work to teach all those classes and then do other stuff. But that's whether you work for somebody else or you work for yourself, that's kind of where the money comes in, because the highest revenue producing activities are not teaching the classes. So that's the other hard pill.
I think that's a hard pill to swallow for people, but that's what people have to understand, is that's one of the reasons why, again, you should be trying to raise up instructors. So for example, at 10th Planet Portland, we have a coaches class that you can do at blue belt and above. It costs $300. It's 7 Saturdays. And what we do is we teach you a methodology of teaching that we use in our classes. We teach you our curriculum and how we structure it and how to teach it. We teach you how to troubleshoot on the fly. We teach you how to work with students. We teach you how to develop people. The people who graduate from that coaches class are then eligible, not guaranteed, they're eligible to become future assistant coaches and to enter the pipeline. So
do they get that assistant coach? Is that a paid job?
It's a stipend.
What's that mean?
They get the assistants are compensated with competition entries. So they get to compete for almost free, basically.
And do they still pay for training though?
They get discounted training or free training.
Okay.
So yeah, they get free training. Sorry. So there are monetary incentives, but it's not just like I hand you cash. But every instructor is paid. Every instructor of every class is paid. It's just the assistants that are like kind of juniors in the system. But the real work is the admin work of getting leads to show up, getting leads to sign up, keeping people, retention. So we have some things that we do at Portland that are specifically focused for retention, that we could talk about too. But retention is really the name of the game that a lot of people don't understand, because once you get through the leads funnel, which everybody needs to understand the leads funnel, but once you get through the leads funnel, you're going to think like, oh, it's great. I did all my leads work and I signed up 24 people this month. So this was a really good month. But then you don't realize that you also lost 21 people for various reasons. So your actual net gain was 3 people. And it could have easily, if you had lost a few more, you could have had a net negative for the month, you know? So that's something that that every business is going to continue to struggle with. And so that's why you want to put the effort into those sales systems. And that's why you want to develop people who can take over some of the coaching so that you can start working on some of the business specifics that actually make the company more profitable.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically that you can take the average number of students you sign up per month, and you can take the average churn you have. It's usually expressed as a percentage, right? Because as you have more students are leaving per month, and that's going to determine basically where you plateau out. So if you sign up 10 students a month and you have a 10% churn, you're losing 10%, you're at 100 students forever.
Right.
So churn is one of those things that so retention, churn is one of those things that are super important. So let's talk about the things that you do for that at Portland then.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start with I'm going to start a kind of overview, and then you can tell me where you want to dive in. Okay.
Okay.
When it comes to classes and curriculum, one thing we do is we have every instructor owns their time slot, and the time slots are set up for consistency. So we try to avoid things that are like on Mondays at 9, we wrestle. And then at Tuesdays at 10, we have a beginner's class. And then Wednesdays at 9, we have a yoga class. Like that level of inconsistency doesn't work for people. So we create blocks across the schedule. We offer 67 classes a week. We have 2 mat spaces. And so like, for example, we have a 6:30 a.m. class, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We have an 8 a.m. class, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's the same instructor every time you come to class. We run the curriculum on 2-week units. There's 10 of them. So we have a 20-week curriculum that we run through 2 weeks at a time. It usually goes, 1 week offense, 1 week defense, something like that. But we, with drills incorporated, that's how we move through our 10 modules. Things like back control, guard passing, side control, half guard, open guard, spider web, etc. So we have 10 of those modules. We focus on that subject for 2 weeks at a time. This gives the student, I always tell students, let's say you're going to train 3 days a week. That means that the next 6 classes in a row are all going to be back control, some version of back control, right? That's a level of consistency that I think helps students retain information and find success. And when they retain information, they enjoy themselves more. So enjoyment is something that we have to foster also. We have to have a fun and safe training environment. Otherwise, people won't continue to train. But we also have to have a challenging training environment, because otherwise people won't feel, if it's too easy, they won't be interested. And if it's too hard, they'll be discouraged. So there has to be kind of a middle ground there. We have 3 different pools that I call it. We kind of have a beginner's class, an intermediate class, and an advanced class. The difficulty obviously goes up sharply from the beginner's class to the intermediate class, from intermediate class to advanced class, but that lets people kind of filter into the time slot, the instructor, and the level of difficulty that works for them. So they find something that works for them where they feel good. We offer every student a 30-minute one-on-one with a coach twice a year. That is complimentary. It's free. So it's an hour of time with a coach every year for each student. And in that, we use that half an hour meeting, 2 half-hour meetings. We use that to discuss, it's not a private lesson. It's to discuss challenges, goals, current goals, future goals, needs or suggestions for the program. It's basically a one-on-one check-in where the student gets to tell us what their goals have been, what they've been working on, and what they want to work on. That helps us hold students accountable. It also helps students feel like we're still engaged with their growth goals beyond the sales process. Because obviously in the sales process, we hit the pain points to discuss why you want to train, but then we don't usually ever go back to that and say, hey, what are the new pain points? And so something that's really common is that, you know, you start jujitsu to lose weight or gain confidence or whatever. Okay, 6 months later, you have a whole new set of goals. But who knows? But no one knows what your new sets of goals are because no one sat you down and asked you, hey, I know you joined to lose weight, but you've lost 20 pounds. Now what are you working on? Well, now I really want to do my first competition. Okay, awesome. So this is what we do in those goal setting meetings. We track all of that in our CRM. So we take notes so that if another coach does a future setting meeting, they can kind of see what the last goals were. We do something called Student Feedback Day. This is kind of the closest thing we do to belt testing. We basically split students up by rank, and depending on their rank, we have a rubric, and we ask them to, with no instruction, we ask them to perform moves from the rubric. Show me lockdown, jaws of life, double underhooks, whip up, dog fight, plan B sweep. Okay. And
how often is that?
We do that twice a year prior to promotions.
Okay.
They have to register for it. It's also free. My staff comes in, we run the event, we split them up into groups of 2 to 4 individuals of the same rank, and instructor supervises them moving through the moves and then gives them direct feedback right there. So it creates some objective standards that they know, like, hey, I was really unable to complete the basic rubber guard path. Or it also gives the instructors an opportunity to see everyone that we may not, you know, just come into class and say, okay, let me see everyone's basic rubber guard path. You know what I mean? It's kind of hard to see that, but it gives something demonstrable for the students to come in and be able to say, I was able to perform every single sequence that was asked of me, you know what I mean, prior to belt promotion. So that's something that we like to do specifically for white and blue belts, but we also give feedback to upper belts if they're interested. But most upper belts are getting direct feedback. We do, of course, we do absent student touches through our CRM. So we track attendance. We make everyone check into every class through the iPads so we can see how often you're training. And we use that data to know which students are inactive. And then we try to reach out to those inactive students and see what's going on. Do they need to put their membership on hold? Did they get injured? Are they out of town? Did they get sick? What's going on? That's another thing that lets people know that we care. We want to know what's going on with them. We want to stay in touch. And then we do a lot of events. We do holiday parties. We do Thanksgiving parties. We do Halloween parties. We do 4th of July. We do cookouts. When we do promotions, we do a big promotion ceremony with a potluck afterwards and an open mat, and we do movie nights. And so my belief has always been jiu-jitsu gym as community center. That's my business model. Jiu-jitsu gym as community center. And again, like I said in the beginning of this conversation, people are looking for something that we can always distill down to community or whatever. But a lot of people are looking for something that they miss, whether that was religion or sports teams or some sort of competitive thing that they did when they're youth. And they know the feeling of getting together with their team and celebrating a big win and all of that. And so we create that again in the events. We create a social environment. And this is another thing that a lot of people don't want to do who are just jiu-jitsu instructors. Maybe they feel socially awkward or whatever it is, but you would be shocked what, you know, a little Halloween party can do for the morale and connection of your community. And then that all leads to retention.
Yeah. So on the back to the 30-minute twice a year check-ins, are that's at the 6 months and the 1 year mark? Is it whenever they want?
Yeah, it's whenever they want, and they get 2 per year.
So do you remind them on them, or they can just hit you up whenever they want it?
Well, the thing is that the coaches, the students don't pay for those, but I pay the coaches for those meetings because I'm not asking the coaches to work for free. So when the coaches perform those meetings, they still get paid. So the coaches rack up how many consultations they did in the month, and then they get paid out for that in their monthly bonuses. So it costs me money, but the way I think about it is like, if I have 300 students and I'm willing to pay, $30 an hour for you to talk to them and just write their goals down, then that's $9,000 a year that I'm spending that I expect to get back on retention. Now that would be only $9,000 if every single one of my students got touched, which I know is not going to happen. Like, I know that there's going to be people who don't get it. So what the coaches will do is the coaches will be like, hey, at the end of class, they'll say, hey, and by the way, if you haven't scheduled your free one-on-one session, your goals meeting or whatever with me, hit me up so we can do that, because they know they're going to cash in $15 every time they do that.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So, because you have the coaches responsible, you don't need like automation or anything for that.
No, although I could automate it. I could just do it twice a year, like the way that they do student teacher conferences in school. It's just like, hey, this is the student teacher conference. It would be hard on people's schedules, though. It's probably easier to just break them up. And also, this allows students to come forward when they feel like they're in need, which is good because it makes it more personal. And it also leads to those coaches establishing private lessons. Yeah. Because something may come up in the something that might come up in one of the lessons. They might say, well, hey, look, like, if lockdown is your focus, let's do some private lessons, because the half guard module is not going to be coming around for another month. So let's do some private lessons to get you into that lockdown game. Let's work that at open mat, and let's get you ready for this game that you want to play or whatever. So that's an opportunity for the coach as well to upsell to a private lesson.
Right. So for another question from a bit back, you said you have basically 3 tiers of difficulty of classes. So you don't have any graduation or requirement for those classes. It's just whatever one the student wants to do. They can just try them and see where they fit, or how does that work?
So unless they're a transfer from another jiu-jitsu school with prior experience, everybody starts in our fundamentals program. And we offer fundamentals 3 times a day at 8 o'clock in the morning, 10:30 in the morning, and 6 p.m. at night.
They're rolling in that class?
So the way that class works is, so we have 2 mat spaces. We have a big mat and a small mat. So at the same time that fundamentals is happening on the small mat, there's a all levels class happening on the big mat. And then at the end of their 1 hour of instruction, both those classes come together for live training. But we recommend that the new students wait a couple weeks before starting the live training. But some guys that come in to fundamentals that have a background in wrestling, they want to start live training on day 1. So we allow that.
So what if it's not the difficulty of live sparring? What is the big difference in between those 2 classes then?
Curriculum. So we mandatory have them go through the first 20 weeks of the fundamentals curriculum. So we have a detailed fundamentals curriculum that we've written out. It's based on conceptual goals and kind of a hierarchy of things that we're priming people for the all levels class and for the advanced classes. So they'll start let's say that someone starts in 6 p.m. fundamentals. He'll be in that class for 10 modules, 20 weeks. He'll go through the entire curriculum. Then he'll be graduated up to the next class, the all levels class. The all levels class is also more expensive, but not by much. So when you sign up for in our school, when you have the fundamentals membership, we only offer 2 memberships. We have fundamentals and we have unlimited. So once you graduate from the fundamentals program, you get access to every class. So now you get access to wrestling classes, Muay Thai classes, advanced classes. You get everything after that. So you could think of the fundamentals first 20 weeks, basically 5 months, as a probationary period. And you have the lowest price and you have the least amount of classes you have access to. You just kind of focus on the fundamentals and get used to rolling. And then once you graduate from fundamentals after 20 weeks, you have access to the entire schedule.
So you don't have to go from fundamentals to intermediate. You could go from fundamentals to advanced.
Yep, you totally could.
So
And
is there enough advanced training sessions per week for, like, is there like one every day at prime time?
advanced is every day at noon and 7:30 p.m.
Okay.
So
So
there's
is
two
it tougher
advanced.
is it tougher live roles, or is it just harder curriculum, or what's the difference?
It's you could call advanced like closer to competition training. It's much more live sparring. The people that are in the advanced classes are generally purple belts and above. It's more advanced curriculum. You know, it's like if I was teaching like fundamentals, I might teach a straight ankle lock in all levels class. I might teach a knee bar and an outside heel hook. In a advanced class, I might teach a Kani Basami.
So all of them are still teaching. So it's the advanced class isn't like mainly live drilling.
The advanced class is much more live drilling.
Okay.
Yeah. There is still some instruction. I usually do about 20 minutes to half an hour of instruction, followed by an hour of drilling and live training. And that's usually the opposite of a normal class, which would be like an hour of instruction with half an hour of live training.
All right. So since we're on a curriculum topic, but it's inside of a retention topic, let me ask this. Do you know at which month in the student's journey or months that they're at most risk statistically at your gym? Have you had a look at that?
At risk for what? Injury or for like or retention?
Yeah. Well, injury is going to affect retention, especially if it's early on. But yes, I mean, in general, do you have which months are most likely that a student is to leave?
Okay, I'm just logging into Zen Planner here. So I can tell you, according to this, and these numbers are, progressive, but our 3-month retention is 75%. Our 6-month retention is only 53%. So it just trails off from there,
Are those numbers, is that from months 3 to 6, or is that 53 from month 0 to?
Yeah, 0 to 6. Yeah.
All right. So yeah, in Red Belt, I want to build a report. I know what report you're talking about. I want to build one that specifically talks about the months and which months people fall out from. But that gives you a good idea, right? So
yeah, I mean, the fact that we're holding 75% of people for 3 months is good.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. If that's from their first day to like that, that's outstanding. That's truly outstanding. Why I asked that is like, because you have that 21 day or 21 week, is there a big fall off at that point? Is why I asked this question. Do you know if that month is the month that people quit?
That's a good question. Well, the thing is that that month is a real turning point for a lot of students because they're leaving the fundamentals. And this is why I describe it as 3 pools, because, I think about taking your kids to swim. The first pool you put the kids in, it's bathtub temperature and it's short. You can't drown in it. You know what I mean? It's the shallow end, right? Then you get to a pool, it's a little bit bigger, a little bit deeper. You got to swim. Eventually you're in an Olympic pool. It's 12 feet deep and it's outside. So it's 50 fucking degrees or something. The water is freezing. And if you don't swim as hard as you can swim, you're going to like freeze to death. You know what I'm saying? So if you take kids and you proverbially throw them into the deep end there's going to be a lot of sinkers and not a lot of swimmers, right? But the trick in jiu-jitsu is that the hard truth is that it's a tough sport and it's hard and there's going to be attrition and it's not going to be for everybody. It's not everybody is going to make it. There's no one that can take 100% of people and take them to black belt. It's just not possible because it's something that the individual has to want and has to conquer so many personal hurdles along the way that it's just not possible to guarantee that everyone's going to make it to black belt. There's going to be attrition. So the question is, when do you expose the students to that? I know schools out there that don't let the students do any live training for the first year, which is crazy to me because I'm sure that they're saying I'm sure the thinking is we're letting them learn technique and get accustomed to all of this for a very long time, and this is reducing injuries or something like that. But the truth is that you're shielding them from the truth for a longer extended period of time. So you're actually keeping them, you're stunting their development by not exposing them to what's really going on. So at some point you have to expose them to what's really going on. So let's say that in your advanced classes, you're trying to approximate the finals of an ADCC open type of pressure. You know what I mean? Like I want, on the most heavy days, I want to simulate what it would be like for you to make it to the finals of the ADCC open. And now you're trying to win a gold medal. You know what I mean? So you really, really care. You really, really got to scramble. You really, really got to fight. You really, really got to try to break that guy's leg. I'm going to tell you, break that guy's leg. Try to break his leg. Try to break his leg. That's the pressure that's going to make someone tap at that level. You got to try to break his leg. In fundamentals, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm going to tell you, try not to break his leg. Make sure that you do not break this person's leg, right? So there's got to be a scaling as you advance with the difficulty, where I give you the next level of difficulty as you're ready for it, right? And I think that a lot of schools don't necessarily do that very well, and they probably do see a drop-off. And you know, when we move students from fundamentals to all levels, it's a big step up. And that's why most students don't go from fundamentals to advanced. They go from fundamentals to all levels to advanced, because simply the step up in fundamentals to all levels in our school, that's enough of a difficulty increase for you to stay re-engaged and not feel like you need more challenges right away.
I'm currently pretty fascinated by the statistical idea of art, like, because there's so many different voices in the community talking about this, right? Like, oh, we're keeping these people. But my argument is, on these numbers, if you don't know the drop-off rate at that point time, are you keeping more people by extending them? Or are you moving their quit, right? So if you say you kept them a year, which I agree with you, that sounds like way too long. Say you did that, right? So if you had the statistics to show me that now at that piece, along the journey, now more people get to black belt, now more people get to world class, I might be on board, right? But if instead it's like, hey, you know, I had it at 20 weeks, I moved it to 1 year. I had this big fallout at 20 weeks. Now I don't. Now I have the same big fallout at 1 year. Like, are you just moving it, right? And at what point are you actually improving and not moving it? Because like you said, like, because most people with successful gyms I'm talking to are in agreement that the Olympic pool you talked about isn't for your first day. If you're like, so that first day is too early. 1 year is too long. So there's no hard truth on where it is. So where should it be? Is there a way the numbers can dictate this? And the people that say longer, like, are you helping the student? That's where I really want to measure it, because I think, have you thought about that? Any thoughts right there?
Absolutely. I think it's a really great question. And I think that it's hard to measure because of the subjectivity of how each gym is run and how each instructor runs their program. So I think that you should say, this is something we know is true in the sport, and this is something we want to measure at your gym. And I think we can get a metric at gym per gym. but I don't think we can necessarily make a universal rule unless we all are teaching the same way and running class the same way, right? So at my gym, I want to begin, I want to see people start rolling in the first 2 months of their training. Now, who are they rolling with? They might be only rolling with people that are their skill level. I'm a big believer that you need 3 kinds of training partners: people better than you to beat you up, people less good than you for you to try stuff on, and people who are at your level, so that when you know if you do a move and the other person doesn't want you to do it, you know it really worked, and that builds your confidence. So if you only get your ass kicked, you're not going to ever build confidence, but you're going to get tough, but you're not going to really be confident. If you only beat people up, you're going to be overconfident. And that's the problem with being the best guy at your gym, is that if no one is beating on you, you're not really learning out what your level is. If you have a lot of training partners that are the same level as you, that can be very developmental, because you have people who genuinely don't want to get armbarred, and that's a real test for your armbar skills. When you're the brand new guy in jiu-jitsu, everybody's better than you. You're the bottom of the totem pole. So it's going to take a couple of months, 2, 3, 4 months, before there's someone lower on the totem pole than you that you could actually have success against, you know? So in the beginning, every training partner that you have for live training is either going to be at your level or above your level. So you're going to take a lot of beatings, but once you get into month 3, 4, 5, 6, you're going to be in a place where you're going to know there's people you can train with to have success. There's people you can train with to have a challenge, and there's people you can train with to essentially see what the next level looks like, to expand what you know is possible.
So that's about development of jiu-jitsu, and you feel like, so that's getting people better. But at what point, like as far as when we stop sheltering them, though, where does that go? Should their development dictate that, or how much are we concerned with like people that look in the mirror and say, you know, how about some other activity than this that's not as frustrating and hard?
Right. I mean, I have sometimes, so there's 2 sides of this coin, right? Something that I'm sure you yourself have experienced and can speak to, and I myself have experienced and can speak to. Neither you nor I were the jockiest jocks in high school, you know? And so there's one style of thinking about this where you think, I'm going to make my class so hard that I don't even care. It's going to be a waste field. It's going to be a slaughter. It's going to be, guys are going to be quitting every day. Only the strong will survive. Lions with lions, and iron sharpens iron, and blah, blah, blah. And you could do that. But you might discourage people who otherwise would have made it had you not done that, And when you look at the best guys in jiu-jitsu, a lot of them are kind of nerdy software engineer type dudes who weren't the jockiest jocks in high school. You know what I mean? Now they've become more athletic, and they started training seriously, and they started lifting weights. And so now they look like professional athletes. But when you go back in their history, I bet that they weren't always like that. Some of them, you know what I mean? I mean, that's the story of Eddie Bravo or Ryan Hall, or a lot of guys that just don't look like they were a jock, or you or me. And there's plenty of other examples. There's plenty of Andre Galvaos out there, or guys that were super athletic always, and there's those guys in jiu-jitsu too. But jiu-jitsu is obviously not just only for those guys. So I think that having a progressive process for getting people into the sport safely and consistently making the training more difficult for them up to the point where they're at real time, real speed, real pressure is what we should all be trying to do. And I think we should be trying to have a maximizing effect where we bring as many people along with us as possible. We don't want to discourage people. And the truth is that a lot of athletic people quit for one reason or another. So it's not always predictive. Your initial athletic ability is not always a predictor of your future jiu-jitsu success in the sport. We've just seen that to be true. Something I say a lot is that jiu-jitsu turns masochists into sadists. And what I mean by that is, in order to succeed in jiu-jitsu, you kind of have to be a masochist because there's so much pain and suffering in the beginning that you have to endure. And then eventually you get to become the sadist who inflicts pain and suffering on others. Now you no longer have to be the one that suffers. You're now the one that inflicts the pain and suffering. But what happens is a lot of guys come in, especially, big jockey type dudes, and they don't want to endure anything. They've never had to endure anything in their whole lives. They've always been good at it. They've always been the strongest. They've always been the toughest or whatever. And that becomes a weakness of mentality because now they cannot survive not being the best. And they get choked out by some 130-pound female who laughs and skips away on the mat. And they just really can't handle that. So people who are going to be successful in jiu-jitsu long term, I would say it's more predictive if they can endure suffering than it is how much athletic ability they have.
Absolutely. So going back to these hard points, and you talked about a lot of different things on retention. So is it possible to take a different piece of retention and line it up with that problem piece? Like, will a barbecue or something like that make up for the fact that you were thinking about quitting because you're getting crushed and your ego is killing you? Does that work? Can we...
I think that I don't think a barbecue can fix your bad guard passing, but I think that a barbecue can make you feel like there's people who care around you and want to help you, that you're part of something that's a team, that's communal, that's not just you on your own, you for yourself, so no, the barbecue is not going to fix your ego death issues, but it is going to put a happier face on the fact that you may be suffering, but you're suffering with good people around you who you enjoy spending time with. The bottom line is that in order to get good at jiu-jitsu, you have to spend a lot of time at the gym. So if you're not going to be spending time on the mats, if you're not enjoying the people you spend time with on the mats, it's going to be hard to spend a lot of time at the gym. I've had experiences. Almost all my jiu-jitsu experiences have been very, very positive, but I have had experiences in the past where, there's something uncomfortable in the training environment and it makes you less likely to go train. So that's one of the reasons why, relationships in the gym can be difficult, or, people who have other kinds of personal drama or owe each other money or whatever the deal is. All of that stuff can affect the training if the good vibes are lost, So I think that keeping the training environment kind of clean and pure and something that you really look forward to doing is going to help everybody want to come train. And, a barbecue now and then is not going to hurt anything, but it's not gonna, solve all your problems either.
Yeah. How often do you guys do events, whether it's a barbecue or getting together or movie night? How often should that be, especially trying to hit these problem areas for people? So I need to do that all the time if I want to do that? Or
so one thing I've tried to when I was in college, the school doled out resources to many different groups and clubs and stuff. And anybody that had a club they wanted to do could come forward and say, hey, I got this club and this is how many people are interested and we want some resources to do this thing. And the school would say yes or no or whatever. That's kind of the way I think about it. The gym is a facility. It has space. If someone comes to me and says, hey, we want to do a board game night. We have some people interested in playing board games. We know the gym closes at X time. So we're going to take over. We're going to clean everything up and whatever. I like to empower people to do that kind of thing. I don't believe that I need to be the one leading every charge, right? So, someone wants to set up a trip to go snowboarding or a trip to go surfing or a trip to go hiking or a trip to do community service or a trip to, it's really just doing like-minded things with like-minded people who you're already friends with or working with. And the barbecues are normally like big events like promotion ceremony type stuff, Thanksgiving, something like that. But if someone came to me and said, hey, I know the gym has a projector. This Friday night, I want to project Escape from LA with Kurt Russell. Okay. I don't care. Like to me, if you can get 10% of your gym population to show up to one event, that's a massive success. And if you have one event per month and 10% of the people show up, and over the course of a year, maybe each person attends 2 to 3 gym events, you've impacted a massive amount of people. You've created something that people enjoy. And now when a financial hardship or a scheduling change or a work thing comes up, now the gym is something that's so integral in people's lives that they are going to find a way to work through the financial problem. They're going to become that person you were talking about earlier, that most loyal student who is working through things and not asking for a discount because the gym is such an important place to them, But if it's just, a place that you go twice a week and get beat up by people and you never really feel like anybody's on your team, no one ever checks in with you, no one ever asks you how you're doing, no one ever says, hey, what are your goals? How do you want to get better? Hey, by the way, let's just go grab a beer and not even talk about jiu-jitsu and just like exist as people. I don't think that you're necessarily going to stick around that place very long.
Yeah. So you said the word empower, but you didn't elaborate on how an instructor would do that. So if they want to empower students or staff or people to be able to put these things together, how do you empower them?
Well, the easiest way is just to give space. So you just have the gym is a meeting space. You're not booking the gym 24 hours a day. That means that there's dead time. And so the most simple thing you could do is just let people use the space. I have turned 10th Planet Portland into something of an events space. So now there will be people who come through town who will just say, hey, can we host this event at your gym? We will pay you X dollars to use the space. And I say yes. So we've hosted other tournaments that we have nothing to do with. We've hosted seminars. We've hosted, we had a guy come through named Ed Calderon, who is kind of like a knife instructor and other kinds of stuff. And he hung up a 200-pound pig in our gym, and they put down a lot of plastic, and everybody came in for the seminar was like stabbing the pig with their homemade knives and shit. And this had nothing to do with the gym. I don't think a single one of my students attended, but they paid us to use the space because they needed the space. So therefore the space has value, and that's something that we can just give to people who are inside of our community. So if you say, hey, I want to do a yoga class, or I want to, and so the first thing is empowering through space. The second one is empowering through reach. So we have a mailing list, we have a community, we have a Facebook page. We can put our name behind your thing and give a bigger voice to the audience. So we can say, hey, Brian wants to host a hike up this mountain, and we can send that to all 1,200 people on our mailing list or whatever, and then people can show up and say, hey, I want to go on this hike. I can guarantee you that this has happened in the past. I've thought about this. This has definitely happened where a person has been a member of the gym in the past. Maybe they had a financial hardship or a work thing come up and they had to cancel their membership. And then a gym event will happen and they'll show up to the gym event, even though they're not a current member. And then that will be the thing that catalyzes them to restart their membership. So there's things that can continue to bring people in, and then they decide, you know what? Even though I took a break for 6 months, it's time for me to come back to jiu-jitsu. It's time for me to come back in. I forgot how much I like this thing. Another thing that we do every week is we have an open mat that's open to the public every single week, every Friday night from 6 to 8 p.m. And we usually have about 50 to 60 people on the mat. Sometimes 10 plus black belts are on the mat. And this is open to everybody and absolutely free. And that's another thing that brings a lot of people in. Even if they've been a former member, sometimes they'll come back into open mat, remember how much they like it, rejoin the gym, and that's another membership coming back in.
Yeah, I can see that. Do you ever run into the people doing things, since I guess you're allowing non-members, former members to come into these events, you ever run into somebody like doing that instead? Right? Like, oh, I'll just go do all the community stuff instead of paying you, instead of.
Yeah, I guess I've seen that before. It doesn't last very long. It usually gets pretty awkward because everybody keeps asking you, hey, what's up? Why aren't you training? When are you going to come back to the training? We miss training with you. Come train with us. We want to train with you. You know what I mean? And that's not me. It's not like I'm not assigning people to do that. That's just the normal social pressure of the students in the class just wanting their training partners to come back, and like something that I hear from people who take time off all the time is like someone will take, 3 months off for an injury or 6 months off. And then they'll come back and they'll be like, oh my God, everyone's different. It's all new people. I don't know any of these faces. And it's like, well, actually, if you would just come and train every day for 2 weeks, you would know all these people because these are the people who show up every day. You know what I mean? And the gym is just a continuum of its members, And so there's institutional memory that exists in the people who stick around, but every promotion ceremony you go to, you always see there's a big group of white belts, a smaller group of blue belts, a smaller group of purple belts, smaller group of brown belts, a smaller group of black belts. So, obviously there is attrition happening because not everybody's making it to black belt. So there's always going to be a bunch of new faces in the white and blue belt area, but in your purple belts, brown belts, your dedicated blue belt and your black belts, that's where you're going to have the culture of the gym that you've hopefully instilled in people so that they are letting everyone know what the expectations and of the community are when they enter the space. So if you have someone who's coming in, who's only abusing and not really giving back, not really participating, that's going to be something that your members are going to almost handle for you. You're not even going to have to handle that yourself, is the way I feel.
Okay. Yeah. So to recap this retention conversation, the kind of pillars of the retention, if you had to rank them, where would you rank each thing in terms of actual importance of keeping people around?
Okay, I would say the number one thing is quality of class. So whether it's a fundamentals class or a competition class, the quality of the class is the number one thing. What does quality mean? That goes back to good technique, good instruction, meaning good methodology, good organization, safe and fun. Safe and fun. That's it. So if you can teach a high quality class that people enjoy, they feel like they've grown, they feel like they developed, they got a good workout, they feel physically good leaving the class, they didn't get injured, they didn't get insulted, they didn't get beat up or whatever, like physically too badly. That's going to be your first line of defense for retention. The next line is going to be engagement, meaning letting people know that you are with them in their journey. I use the analogy of the Sherpa all the time, because the Sherpa is the guy that walks with you when you go up to Mount Everest. And this guy, literally, all he does is walk up and down the mountain all day, and that's his job. He guides people to the top of the mountain, but he doesn't piggyback them to the top of the mountain. You don't get to jump on his back, and he doesn't walk you physically to the top of the mountain. And that's what we do as coaches. We walk with you, we walk alongside you, but we don't do the walking for you. If you stop walking, if you stop progressing, we're there to say, no, this way, come on, let's go to the next level. But we can't do that. We can't do it for you. So we have to let you know that we work with you. We're here for you. And we want to know what your goals are and what you're trying to accomplish so that we can help you achieve that. We engage with you on that level, and then we engage with you socially. We try to let you know that you're part of something that's not just training, not just competition, but it's also a group of people who are like-minded, who are socially connected, that feels socially connected, that feels like a community. When sometimes that could come down to where we have a benefit seminar scheduled right now. We're going to do a benefit seminar for the victims of the fires in Hawaii, and we're going to ask people to get together and donate to that. And so now they're going to use jiu-jitsu for a good cause, and that's all going to be hosted by the gym. So that's just a small example of engagement that makes people feel good, and that makes them feel like their community is something that is valuable to them. And then the last line of defense is just setting up your automations that track retention and numbers and students' activity, so that when students are starting to fall off, you're actually aware of that, and you never have to say, where's that guy? I haven't seen him in a while. It's like, well, you should know that you haven't seen him in a while, because you should know that he hasn't checked into class for 6 weeks.
So you see number 4 as different than number 2, because number 2 is like, hey, we're guiding them. If you're stopping, we're reminding you. But it seems like, is that not also automations could be automatically sending them a text, but also could be like sending you the stuff to remind them. So how is that different than number 2 right there?
It doesn't have to be. It's just more like, though I was kind of thinking about it in terms of like the most engaged student to the least engaged student. So I was kind of thinking about a hierarchy of engagement. So like the most engaged student is the guy that shows up every single day for class because he's obsessed with jiu-jitsu, and he's there for the jiu-jitsu. He doesn't care about the parties. He doesn't care about the belts. He doesn't care about the memes. He doesn't care about any of that stuff. He just loves the jiu-jitsu. He's there for the training. That's your most engaged student. You can't even kick that guy out of the gym. You know what I mean? But every student's not going to be like that guy. Some people are going to need a little bit more help along the way, a little bit more reminding of what their goals are. So you're going to have goal sessions and more feedback for those people. And then some people are going to need even more than that. So you're going to have some barbecues to keep them engaged. And you're going to have to say, hey guys, in 3 months from now, there's a competition. And then 3 months after that, there's a promotion ceremony. So let's all do the competition, and then let's all see who gets promoted, and let's all keep working. So if you have no goals, you're just roaming. You're just on autopilot. So goal setting is something you can do to put on the horizon to keep people motivated, whether it's for party or for competition. And then the last level is kind of just, if people aren't showing up to class, aren't asking for help or contacting coaches, aren't showing up to events, and aren't participating, then that's the lowest performer. And you still have to have a net at the very bottom that's trying to catch those people, because otherwise you're going to have a massive amount of people who aren't officially quitting, but they're just no showing the gym. And every month you have to go through your CRM and clean those people out because their bills are stacking up.
Yeah. So the big difference that I'm hearing there is number 2 is a preventative, and number 4 is the problem has already happened and you're trying to see what you can do to fix it. Is
Right.
that
It's a last measure before writing them off, essentially.
yeah? So, and you merged community in there with. So, if you had to separate community from number two of guiding them, would it be above or below?
Below.
Okay, so the guiding them and then community would be after that. Okay, I think that's a lot of good stuff to think about right there. I just last week I asked the question also, and I got a very different type of engineering answer, right? And I liked this answer a lot. I'm an engineer, so I love engineering answers. But in the subject of retention, I think we need a very people-y answer because it's a very people-y problem.
Generally, the people who stay. We started by saying this whole game is a people game in my mind, you know, and I think I am a people person, but I don't really even see myself as a people person. I don't think like, oh, I'm the ultimate people person, but I do care about people and I have the ability to let people know that I care about them. And in that way, I'm trying to have people solutions to people problems. When you have a coach who says, I'm going to train hard with you every day, and we're going to go do this competition together, and then we're going to go do that competition together, and we're all going to fight together, and we're all going to do this together, that creates a motivation for everybody who wants to do that thing. You know, if you have a coach who says, I'm done competing. I'm not going to compete anymore, but I'm going to be there every single day. I'm going to be as committed as you are. And I'm totally committed to your success. And I'm going to use everything in my power and my knowledge and my experience to get you the goals that you want. Then that's going to create something good too, you know? So the issue is when people start to feel not looked after, not cared about, like another number in your system, another metric, that does not lead to retention overall. But I'll have to go back and listen to your previous podcast so I can understand better.
Yeah, if you do, you'll get what I'm saying. But with man, I forgot what I was going to say right there. But anyway, with the idea of retention like this, we have to really think about the student. So every little engagement matters. I've talked to a lot of people about the subject of the head coach being present at all competitions, and there's a lot of different feelings about this because there's a lot of competitions, right? So I think you're next to a big competition area. I'm close enough to Houston. So there's one every weekend. And do we have the obligation to be there every weekend? Should we be there at all? Like, should we only be on big team events that we put together? Is it okay if our guys are going? I personally have done a ton of tournaments where I was just by myself. It can be pretty lonely sometimes. Like, where does this go?
Yeah. Something that I was speaking to Coach Marvin, 10th Planet Dark Arts, Marvin Castell, and we were talking about how a lot of times head coaches or business owners will say what you just said. Hey, when I was competing, I would go out by myself. When I was competing, I would fly 1,000 miles and pay $1,000 just to fight 2 matches. And I've done
the
it.
Only one left from my city, right? From that generation also. So I get you, right?
Yeah, right. So the thing is that you're the 1%er and the 99% didn't make it, right? So you're already the exception to the rule as being a successful gym owner. You've already gone above and beyond what most people will do. So let's not use you or me or Marvin or Nathan Orchard as the example for what a normal student should experience or expect, right? I think that the person who is leading the competition team should be present for as many of the competitions as possible. And I think that from my own experience and the changes I'm making in my own team right now, I think that the team should compete together as much as possible and not become fragmented. So I think it's better if you have one competition class a day, one time slot, then whoever teaches that class should be expected to show up to the tournaments. And if you as the head instructor, if your ego says, I will be the competition team instructor, I am the most experienced, I'm blah, 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 then you should be showing up for your guys on a Saturday to coach them. If you're the one that's going to be the one teaching them the competition strategy and working with them every day, then you should be the one showing up. That's my opinion. If you are a fundamentals coach, if you're a auxiliary coach, and some student that you've worked with is competing, I don't think you're automatically obligated to show up for the whole day. But I think if you're the one that calls yourself the leader of the competition team, you should be the one that shows up. And I think that students who want to compete should want to join your team and put in the work that everybody else is putting in alongside everybody else. And then I think that you should not fragment your team. So instead of having 3 guys go one way and 3 guys go another way and 5 guys this weekend and 6 guys next weekend, I think you should pick specific rule sets that you want to tackle. And I think that you should gear your competition classes towards those rule sets. And I think you should choose specific tournaments that are big, important to you that you're going to go compete in. It's not going to be successful if you're doing an EBI rules tournament this weekend, an ADCC rules tournament next weekend, and then an IBJJF tournament the weekend after. You're just not going to be successful. So I think a lot of guys that have been doing the ADCC opens will start doing fewer IBJJF tournaments, and I think that guys who want to focus on ADCC rules will do that. And guys that want to win Nogi Worlds will focus on those IBJJF rules because that's the rule set that they want to win in. So I think that your school, your coach, your team should all be aligned on not necessarily a singular purpose, but at least a congruent purpose in order to have success.
Okay, so I'm going to ask another question about tournaments here. And before I say that, I'll preface this with, I know you and I are both core values over money, and we both have certain opinions about the importance of teaching, of competing, especially for people that might be future instructors. Like I definitely think competing has a lot of value to jiu-jitsu, but when we dial it straight down to retention and numbers and math, where do tournaments help or hurt us with retention? So and is there any way to change that also if they hurt us?
Okay, so tournaments can either help or hurt us because they can be very encouraging and they can be very discouraging. And that has a lot to do with the mentality of the student. And I think that's something that I would say most coaches are not doing and probably not qualified to do. And I'm one of them. I don't really think that I'm the best at this. This is not something that this is somewhere I would point out that I probably can get better. But I think coaches need to do as much mental coaching as they're doing physical coaching, because the mental strategy of competition is what usually trips people up, not the physical strategy. And I think that when a lot of people start jiu-jitsu, they might think jiu-jitsu is 90% physical and 10% mental, but the more you get into it, you're like, it's kind of 90% mental and 10% physical. I mean, the physicality is important, but if you have the wrong mentality, the wrong mental strategy, or the wrong mentality walking into a tournament, you're going to not have success. So I think that when it comes to retention, you don't want to introduce students to the deep end of the pool. So you don't want to take your students who are never competed before to the ADCC Open, even if it's the ADCC Open Beginners Division. You still don't want to do that. And something that we've done now is we have a once a month in-house tournament, again, free to all members. We break them up into divisions. We choose a rule set that we stick with for several months. And so right now, our students are all competing in a IBJJF points rule set in our in-house tournament. We run about 6 or 7 different divisions based on skill and weight and sex. And so we're giving our students an opportunity to compete in-house for free every single month. And that is something that they can look forward to. It's something that they can have a little bit of good feelings about without getting too discouraged. It's something that comes up in goal setting. But it's not the same stress level as spending 70 to $100 and traveling 3 hours to go have one match and then lose and then really feel devalued and have to go home Monday and tell everybody that you lost. Now, again, not using myself as the example, but I don't think I won a gold medal in competition until I was a purple belt. I think all my competitions up to purple belt were pretty much silver, bronze, or lower, but I enjoyed competition from the very beginning. I'm a competitive person. I enjoyed the actual competing and fighting. So much so that I tried 2 MMA fights. And I really just loved it. Now, I've also heard stories about guys like Keenan Cornelius who always puke before big competitions. There's guys who, even though they're big performers, mentally they're stressed out by competition. I don't get that so much. I kind of enjoy the competition process. And so, I think that for people who are more like me, who enjoy competing naturally, who get a thrill from it, who get a high from it, those guys are going to be addicted once they find competition, and that's going to propel their growth. For people who have a lot of troubles, whether it's mental, physical, game plan, mentality, whatever it is, that stops them from having success in competition, if you're a school that very much pushes competition for everybody, those people are going to feel devalued, and it's going to hurt their retention. So I don't think that mandating competition is the way to increase retention. I do think that exposing certain people to competition is going to get them hooked faster. And I think that the people who get hooked on competition will be the ones that make it farther in the sport. But I don't think that that's a reason to mandate competition. Because I think there's a lot of people like something else that I tell people a lot is like, competition medals are not the only metric of success. For someone that's a sexual assault survivor, just showing up to the gym and letting someone else put their physical body weight on you is a huge, huge win. For someone who's a combat veteran that has severe PTSD, just showing up and getting into a situation where someone's strangling you and you have to breathe and be calm, that is a huge, huge win for that person. So when you know the goals of the individual, you can kind of understand what's a more metric for them. Someone who was a 3-time state champion wrestler, okay, they're not going to be satisfied with a silver medal. They're going to want a gold medal. They're going to want to be the best of their division, and they're going to want to be the best of the next division, and so on. So you kind of have to understand what is in someone's experience to know where they're competing. So some people with anxiety disorders, it might be a win just for them to show up to the gym 3 days in a row because it's so hard for them to get out of their house and show up to the gym, So there's all kinds of gold medals in the sport where people can be challenging themselves without stepping on the mats for a naga.
Right. Awesome, Phill. So it's been great. Do you have any sort of closing thoughts for viewers or me or anyone?
All I would say is that if you're listening to this podcast and you thought that anything that Brian or I talked about or mentioned was particularly interesting, just hit us up because we're pretty open people. We like to share this kind of information. I've toyed with the idea of starting like a consulting company for jiu-jitsu, the way I had a consulting company for cannabis, and trying to help people, grow their businesses and maximize what they're doing. But I really just don't even have time to do that right now. And it's honestly, I just give it away for free, and people call me up and they ask me what I think, and I just help them, and I just give it away for free. So right now I'm not even I don't even charge for it. I just, when people want help, I just try to help as many people as possible. So if you're listening to this and you are a gym owner that wants to improve your systems, hit up me, hit up Brian Barncat, and we'll probably just help you out just to try and see the sport grow.
Yeah, me too. I back that 100%. Thanks so much, Phill. This has been a super great podcast. Thanks for being guest number 2, and we'll see you around.
Okay, huge honor for me.